Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. So we're back in the BMW E65 series today, and we're going to be talking about the N47 and the N57. But before we get into the video, please give this video a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. It just helps this video get pushed out to a broader audience. Now today we're going to be talking about the common causes for a rough running, a rough idle or a misfire like symptom on these engines. Now we could just sit in the car and talk about the common causes for these problems, but I think what I'll do is I'll get outside, I'll pop the bonnet, and let's take a look at the engine itself. Okay then, so here we have the N47 engine. Now bear in mind, the problems that I'm going to be talking about also cover the N57 engine. It's pretty much the exact same engine, just with two extra cylinders, of course. But the first problem that I'm going to talk about is the injectors, and that is with the injectors leaking. Now if you notice that your revs are hunting slightly, especially on a cold start with the idle, they may be fluctuating between 800 and 900 or maybe even up to 1000 RPM. If you find that happening, your needle moving ever so slightly, then you may have leaking injectors. Obviously your revs climb when more fuel is injected into the cylinders, so with a little bit of extra fuel leaking down to the cylinders, it causes the revs to climb a little bit. So you may just have a leaking injector seal, or one of your injectors may be cracked. That is worth investigating if you do find that you have a hunting idle, especially on a cold start. Another issue with the injectors, and I'm actually going to go ahead and remove the engine cover so you can get a closer look, is when the copper injector seals themselves leak, and it causes what is commonly known as black death for a diesel. So the copper washers that sit on the bottom of the injectors, which seal the injectors into the cylinder head, when they fail, then it can actually cause carbon and soot and diesel to come up of the side of the injectors and actually sit on top of your rocker cover. Now because the seal's broken, that obviously means air is escaping and you're not going to get proper compression, so it's obviously going to mean that you will be down on power slightly, and you'll typically notice a oily carbon mess on top of your rocker cover, and you'll usually see it around the culprit injectors. So if you do notice that, and you do notice a chuffing sound on idle, it's definitely worth inspecting your injectors, and you'll probably find out that you have what is commonly known as black death. Now obviously I mentioned earlier on, if you have a hunting idle, so say your revs just climb slightly and drop slightly, especially on a cold start, that is typically down to a leaking injector. But if you find out that your revs are just jumping all over the place completely, random, then you may actually find out that you have a faulty mass airflow sensor. This is obviously used to measure the air coming into the engine, and obviously adapts the amount of fuel that is injected then into the cylinders. So if you find out that you have a faulty mass airflow sensor, very simple to remove. All you need to do is remove the two bolts here, then remove the respective Jubilee clip, and then just pull off the electrical connector, and then it pops out as a single unit. This isn't one of those mass airflow sensor that actually can be removed from the pipe. It's just a complete sealed unit, so that may need replacing if you find out that your revs are just going all over the place, especially when driving as well. But if you was to do a scan using ISTA-D, it would tell you if your mass airflow sensor was faulty. Now it isn't a very common issue on this engine. This is the original mass airflow sensor. It's 12 years old, still works perfectly. It will tell you on ISTA-D if it's faulty. It could actually just be a case of being dirty as well, especially if you have a dirty stocked up air filter. So it may just be worth removing it and cleaning the contact points on it with some electrical contact cleaner or some mass airflow sensor cleaner. As long as it's dry before you put it back in the car, you're all good to go. And it's actually worth, you know, giving it a good clean every once in a while anyway, just to make sure it's working as it should. And the final kind of common causes for a rough running or rough idle on the N47 or the N57 is with the EGR system and the DPF. So it's obviously no, you know, new thing on a diesel. It's really only a matter of time before the EGR valve itself gets blocked up and it either gets stuck in the open position, which you do not want. If you get stuck in the open position, you pretty much only got hot air then going back through your intake all of the time, which is obviously not a good thing. Obviously you're going to be massively down on power, and you can potentially run the risk of burning a hole in your intake manifold, because obviously they are only plastic. But if it blocks in the closed position, that's not too bad of a thing. Obviously you will have to remove the valve itself and give it a good clean out so it's working as it should. But if it gets stuck, it's better to get stuck in the closed position. Now, as you can see, I do not have an EGR system at all. I completely removed it, blanked it all off. Much better for the running of your engine. Obviously it's up to you what you decide to do, but as you can see, mine is non-existent. And when it comes to the DPF, now it's usually located in 1 or 2 positions, more commonly known to be on the downpipe, where it is pretty difficult to remove, pretty difficult to access in general, to be honest, or it's usually in the center section on the exhaust, like it is in my BMW E60. I got quite lucky in that respect. But yeah, that tends to get blocked up when you are only doing short trips. So obviously if you have a DPF in place, you want to be going on long trips quite regularly, because you need to get the engine up to operating temperature. There's a few other parameters as well, like you need to have half a tank of fuel, and your coolant needs to reach 75 degrees Celsius or above. So obviously you need to make sure that your thermostats are working as they should, and you may also find that it does not do a regeneration if you have faults with your glow plug system as well. So with your 4 or 6 glow plugs, or with the glow plug module itself as well, which is just located down here on this side of the oil filter housing. So it's very important to keep your glow plug system running as it should, and it's important to take it for regular long drives if you do not want your DPF to be blocked up. If your DPF does get blocked up, then that's not good, because you can potentially run the risk of blowing your turbo. Obviously if it's completely blocked up, you have nowhere for your exhaust gases to go, so it can only go one way, and that's back through your turbo. And yeah, that's just not a good time. That's not a good situation to be in. Now, like I said, like I've done with the EGR, I've completely removed the DPF, so it's no longer an issue. And yeah, it's kind of up to you whether or not you want to do the same as well. But typically what tends to happen when you have a blocked DPF is you may or may not go into limp mode. You may have reduced power, obviously to try and restrict the amount of exhaust gases attempting to go back through there, and you will notice a significant loss in miles per gallon as well. Yeah, DPFs, they can be very temperamental. Now you can physically remove it to try and clean it, you know, manually, or you can try and do a forced regen. Some people have success with that, some people don't. But yeah, again, it's one of them systems which is kind of only a matter of time before it does fail. So yeah, that's kind of the reason why I've chose to remove it. But yeah, I think with that being said, that is pretty much everything in terms of the common causes for your rough running and rough idle problems when it comes to the N47 and the N57 engine. And yeah, hope you've enjoyed it. Okay then, so that wraps things up. Like I said, I hope you have enjoyed this video. I hope you've learned something. Of course, if you do want to see more videos on the N47 and the N57 in particular, then please do give this video a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe if you have not already done so, and I will see you all in that next one.